Welcome back to Mystical Sisterhood. I'm Maureen Spielman, and I'm here today with Alicia Isaacs Howes. As you get to know me, you're getting to know that I'm all about creating conversations around joy, healing, and creating community. And I'm having these conversations with healers, intuitives, and what I call other courageous women. And I'm finding most of the time people overlap in all three categories. Today's guest is Alicia Howes, and she's here to talk to us about the Akashic Records. I think that Alicia does all these things masterfully. Since I've met her years ago in our son's grade school, I've been enlightened with so many new concepts, ideas, questions, revelations. And so every conversation I have with Alicia is always one where I'm learning so much. So thank you for that. So the more professional bio, that's my own just beautiful container for Alicia. But she is the founder of Your Soul Story and international soul connection expert. She's explored thousands of soul stories for over 22 years. I'll let her tell you a little bit about how her gift was discovered. It's a fascinating story. And prior to that, she was a global management consultant. And it was a health crisis that led Alicia to explore different ways to work with her body. And then came in the discovery, I believe, of your gifts around the Akashic Records. So now she loves to guide others with just a beautiful blended process that guides people to their stories, their intuition, and just really, I think, diving into getting to know themselves, honoring their past, honoring where they find themselves now. So I just want to welcome you, Alicia, as we embark on this conversation. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction, and I'm very touched. I can feel the love, and I'm just sending it right back to you because I think from the very first moment I saw you, I didn't know you. We met in a fair kind of thing, but I just felt really drawn to your inner light, and that's another one of my intuitive gifts, I guess, is that I see the light or the essence, the vibration in people sometimes before I know them in any other capacity. And yours is just a beautiful light. So I'm honored to be here today and a part of this group.
Oh, thank you so much. And I think that that's just a beautiful place to start, even for our listeners, is, really paying attention that often when we're attracted to people, it's not just, oh, I kind of like them, but there's something in them we see. And you're kind of
Yes.
calling it their light or just some
Yes.
sort of vibrational match.
Yes, it's something we see, and we all have intuitive gifts in different ways. So for some of us, it's just a feeling, just a knowing. We can receive information in all kinds of ways, but we're all intuitive beings. I do it in a professional way, but everybody listening to this today is intuitive, and it's how much we trust it, how much we honor it, how much we notice it, and that can really amplify how we get to use it as another tool, just like we might use any of our limbs or any of our senses. So so we're receiving input all the time, and that includes people's energies. And I guess you and I have a good vibe going, because I felt immediately, I like being in your field. Like I like being in near your energy.
Yeah. Okay. I love that, Alicia. So, what I'm hearing you say, and it brings me back to when we first met. And when you first started to, I think, just say things to me, maybe it was about intuition, or I remember one time it was you saying that our children choose us. So it would be these kind of concepts that I had never heard before. And they would kind of knock me out of my seat. And then I would go home and ponder it and think about it more. But you are also, I would say, responsible for, placing the beginning seed in me to go into coaching. And I want to say this because at the time you said it, I thought she's crazy. And I know nothing.
You didn't show that.
And I thought, I know nothing about coaching. I am not comfortable. I don't feel worthy of stepping into those shoes. There were a lot of things underlying, but something about that planted the seed that I carried forward, which laid the groundwork, I think, for me pursuing it. And, but at the time, I just wasn't used to turning to my intuition and knowing that I had gifts encoded within me. And the more I want to say to our listeners today too, you may be a person who already has practices and has ways of tuning in to your guides or your own information and wisdom. And if you are not, and some of these concepts are newer or you're intrigued by them, I am here to say stick with it and surround yourself with people who remind you, because often I think with our conditioning, we need to be reminded that it's not all about the outer world. It's not all about, we're brought up with grades. How are you doing on the outside? How much do you weigh? What's your job? How much does it pay? Like all those things. But I didn't know anything about turning within. So what do you think about that, Alicia?
Mm. Well, first of all, I just want to agree with you. Yeah, that this world and our life here is not all about these external reflections of what success or happiness is meant to look like, right? What drives us and motivates us is unique to us, and it may not look like what the rest of our family or what our culture or society has decided or taught us that it should be. And I think I'm just going back to that conversation that we had a few years ago. And to me, it was so blatantly obvious that you're a coach, you're a teacher, you're a guide, you're an illuminator for others, right? Of possibilities. To me, it was so obvious. And then I had no idea that you were like, what? What? But I think what it is that this is something that we may explore further. What I've learned through working in the Akashic Records, and we can talk about that more,
Yeah.
or soul stories, is that time, as we know, it does not really exist. It's a construct that we have in human form to help us with linear thinking and processing. But I've worked in, all these years, and I've seen how working with somebody in current time can create shifts for them into the future that they'll experience, but also the way they experience and feel about past, whether it's past in this physical lifetime or another lifetime, whether it's a spiritual ancestor or their own, DNA or whatever it might be. And so I think that going back to that conversation, I was seeing this aspect of your soul, which is who was will be already a coach. Like that part of you that is your natural gift was already shining through. And so I got a glimpse of it, or I just recognized it, because it's easier sometimes from the outside, right? When we're inside ourselves, it becomes, we have a limited perspective. So I could see your gifts more clearly. And I think that's one of the gifts of actually as being a coach, is that we're looking at, or we're reflecting back to our client the things that maybe they can't embrace for themselves, and maybe they've never had validated, or they felt but they thought or been taught, I can't do that, that's getting too big for my boots, that's not how I fit in my family, that's not how others see me. So they shrink back from the truth of who they are. And so that's where coaching and this kind of work can really validate another's inner being.
It's so beautiful. So that giftedness of that, you as the outside person be able to see that in people. And I think it's true that we may have knowings and we may have ideas about what our gifts are. And then we learned all these kind of coping strategies, these sort of survival strategies that cover up a lot of that for us. And I think that was the case with myself. I couldn't see it because no one had ever really illuminated it for me. So what a beautiful gift that and that we know that just leads to more light on the planet when you can uncover that or escort people into uncovering that.
Because our gifts are that was a big part of why we came here in the first place. So when we're using them and sharing them, we're evolving, but we're also doing what we came here to do. So I believe that then the universe gives you everything you need to keep on doing what you came here to do.
Mm.
So life itself becomes more fluid, more graceful, more, I should say, easy, or graceful, I think is the best word.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah. So when you first started to kind of lean into receiving information or understanding things in a
Mhm.
different way, how did it come to you and what evolved along the way?
It was really interesting because I was always intuitive, just like everybody listening to this is also intuitive, but nobody had told me that what I was thinking or feeling or knowing, but I didn't actually voice it out loud. But I wasn't encouraged to trust what I knew. I actually associated things I knew with negative things rather than the good things because of the culture and the conditioning I was in. And so it wasn't until, I got really ill and I was in a lot of pain. I was told we can do surgeries, but we can't cure this. That I was like, I've got to do something. I've got to figure this out. And so I started working in a whole, exploring this whole world of energy healing and what is energy and vibration. And so that was when I started to do it consciously. But it was in 1997 that I think I might have told you this story. I was working for a big global management consulting firm, and one of my team members was leaving the States to go back to Sweden. And we wanted to do something really American before she left. And we were in Chicago, so we got tickets to the Oprah show. And so we're there at 7 o'clock in the morning. And this is how the universe works, right? So this woman came out. She didn't introduce herself, didn't say her name. But she said, I'm going to be part of the show. And underneath your chairs is a little note card and a pencil. And I want you just for 5 minutes to write down everything you see, think, feel, perceive, everything like it's cold, I'm hungry, I wish I had a cup of coffee, whatever it is. And she said, what you write will answer the question that's in this sealed envelope. And she held it up. And as soon as she did that, I knew what the question was. I'm like, well, this is kind of silly. Like, it's so easy. Like, I didn't get that might not be so easy. But what the question was in my mind was, what do I need for more happiness in my life? So I started writing down things that I was thinking or feeling, but I was answering that question. And I imagined family and friends seeing me on TV. And I imagined my parents and my siblings seeing me. And then what I wrote at the end was something like, I've got a recording that's on VHS, I had to convert it. Something like, what I need for more happiness in my life is to visit my family in England. And so at the end of the exercise, she revealed the answer, and it was, what do I need for more joy rather than happiness? And so she said, who would like to share their answer? So I put my hand up and shared, and then everybody went away again. And then about 10 minutes later, a production person came out and said, are you the one with the British accent? And I said, yes. She said, come with me. And she put me right at the front of the audience. I'm on Oprah. I just said what I need to become happier is see my family in England. So I'm like, I'm getting a ticket to go home.
That's
so
so
I had
funny.
all this stuff. And so I was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope that's it. And then the first guest came out, was Demi Moore. And just to cut the story short, she was there actually to introduce her intuitive coach, Laura Day,
Wow.
who'd written a book, Practical Intuition. And that was one of the exercises that she uses. So they did use the clip of me talking about it in the show, and people around the world did see me and call me and say, were you on Oprah?
Oh my gosh.
So it was funny, but I didn't get that flight to England.
Oh, darn.
But the thing is, I'm sharing this because now I'm like, God, that was so obvious that I was intuitive. I still didn't get it.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, that was a fun experience. So sometimes we really need somebody on the outside
Mhm.
to help us. So it was when I got sick and I started looking at ways to work with energy that my hairdresser recommended a healer. And she guided me through a meditation to help me. And at the end, she said, "You don't need me to do this. You can do this."
Mm.
And as she said it, it just flooded me. I was like, I know I can. Yes. And
Wow.
it
Yeah.
just became this wonderful journey of exploring and learning, but I think more remembering.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So many amazing points in that. I love it. And that idea that, yeah, she reminded you. It's like you were reminded. It's what you knew when you came onto this planet. You knew that you had these gifts, but we
Mhm.
often just need to be reminded. Yeah. And so then the gifts just start. I love the whole story too. And Demi Moore and just that was 25 years ago. That was a while back. Yeah.
Gosh, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it
You'll
is.
be
It's
coming
so
up on
great.
25 years.
Oh, you're aging me a little bit. I
That's
can't
oh,
get
you're
away from
still
my,
so
I'm
young.
only 35.
There's no yes. The concept of
No.
time. That's
Yeah,
right.
right. Yeah, that's a whole
So,
other thing. Yeah.
yeah. So
Mhm.
then did that birth into like tell us about the Akashic Records and how that came to be and for those who don't know much
Yes.
about them, what does that
Oh,
entail?
yes. So the first healer I started working with, who my hairdresser said, I was telling her about this health condition. She said, "Have you tried healing?" And said, "Here's my healer's name."
Wow.
So her name is Judy, or is Judy. And so I started learning and practicing with her. And one day she mentioned the Akashic Records, and it zinged through me. I was like, "What's this? What's that?" And so we set up a reading. I can remember it so vividly. I was nervous. I was excited and like all these feelings at the same time. And that first reading, I'd had a miscarriage the year before. I had the first reading in 2000. And in 99, I'd had a miscarriage. And for as long as I can consciously remember, I'd wanted to be a mother.
Mhm.
So it was a very, it really was, it's like a lot of fear came up about I won't be able to be a mom. And so I did have the reading when my son was 2 months old. So
Mhm.
I got over that bit, but I still had this lingering, like, what was that about? And I still had some grief and guilt.
Mhm.
And so at the end of that 1 hour reading, all the grief had gone.
Wow.
I had such a deeper understanding of the whole experience. And I felt so blessed and so enlightened and empowered and joyful, just overflowing with joy,
Mhm.
that I remember I wanted to go. I lived in Chicago at the time in a three flat, and I wanted to get up onto the rooftop and with a megaphone and say, "Oh, that's what we can do. Life is meant to be joyful. We've had it all
Wow.
wrong. Like,
Yes.
this is what we are. This is what we can do. This is how we can feel." And I remember just feeling so elated. And then I was like, I want to help others.
Yeah.
I want to
Mhm.
do this. So that's how 6 months later, I took my first class in Evanston, Illinois. I took my first
Wow.
class
Yeah.
in the Akashic Records. And for those of you who don't know, Akasha, there are different ways you can Google it, but Akasha, in my mind, is a Sanskrit word meaning basically means energy or the substance from which all life comes. And the Akashic Records are basically energetic records of all the ways that we use energy. So through our thoughts, our words, our feelings, choices and actions in this life or any other life.
Wow.
And they're not being stored so that we get to be tested or evaluated and like, do you get to go on to the next thing? No, no, no. They only contain love and truth. And they're there so that
Mm.
we can look at what's serving me. What do I want to explore next? What have I mastered? What am I ready to share or
Yeah.
teach?
Mhm.
So they're a tool for enlightenment and healing. Love and truth are very healing energies.
Oh, yeah.
Even if sometimes the
Yeah.
truth can sting a little bit,
Mhm.
because it's not what we think we want to hear, but it always leads to more ease and love and
Mhm.
joy and playfulness and all the things that I enjoy.
Yeah, and so when you read when you open someone's Akashic records,
Mhm.
um, I feel like I've done it with you. I've had a reading with you. So I know that when you create the container, of a session with somebody, it is in love and truth. And
Yes.
so I'm wondering, even when there are those moments when the truth is a little harder to hear or realize or see as this big growth opportunity, that it is held in such a safe and sacred way that I feel like I take it with me for my growth more than, oh, there's something wrong with me, or there's something, that's been off and I have to fix it or anything like that. It's
Mhm.
just, yeah, that's been my
Yes.
experience with it, that it's such a beautiful process of discovery.
Thank you. And I think one of the things that I hear most often is that people feel very safe
Hmm.
in that container, and they might receive validation that of things that they've never ever expressed out loud to anyone, but they get, their thoughts, even journaling. I've even had words that come to me that exactly reflected someone's journal
Wow.
phrase.
Yes.
I said, I don't know why they're having me say this way. And I know. And then the client said, I know why, because she showed me a picture.
Yes.
Um, and so it is only about honoring and uplifting us to our next level. And sometimes to get to the next level, we need to let go of things that we're doing that at some level we already know aren't serving us, or are detrimental or non-beneficial, might be a better way to say it.
Hmm.
Whether that's habits or thought patterns, or it could be, choices we're making in how we spend our time or with whom.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and sometimes it's just, we already know what is in our highest good, but we've been taught or trained or conditioned
Hmm.
not to trust our inner knowing, or to put ourselves first. We
Hmm.
kind of push aside what we really want because we feel like, well, what I want isn't as important as what somebody else might want or need,
Yes.
because we're not really valuing ourselves. And so that's where it can get a bit uncomfortable, because
Hmm.
it's not, it's about saying, do you really want this? And you
Yes.
can have it,
Yeah.
but in order to make space for that, there are some things you need to let go. And so, yeah.
So yeah, and it's
Yeah.
true. And it becomes, I feel that people probably fall into different camps of, some maybe are able to change a pattern just like that. And then
Yes.
maybe other people, that's beginning information for them, or building upon what
Yes.
they already knew, like you said.
Mhm.
And it might be a process of
Absolutely.
months, years for some of
Yes.
us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that it's not that we have, yes, one session can be absolutely life changing. Like for me, my
Yeah.
first reading just completely altered the course of my life. Um, and for others, it might be like there's a lot of validation. So then it's like you start to listen and trust your inner knowing, or your inner voice, or
Hmm.
your inner sight a little bit more. And that helps your life unfold more gracefully.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes what we're looking at has so many layers to it that we release some of the layers in that first session,
Okay.
but we may have been wanting to master something. So we may have taken on many, many different experiences or even lifetimes to really explore all the
Right.
different facets of one particular frequency, like forgiveness.
Okay. Hmm.
So we might want to, peel it back through multiple layers, but there's no deadline.
Right.
We're always evolving,
Hmm.
and whatever shifts we make can have exponential results, because it affects everything we do and everything we are, not just, for example, if somebody comes to me with regards to a health issue or a relationship issue, whatever they change or reconfigure in that session affects everything they do. So it can affect their career or their choices in, how they feed or nourish themselves, or how they show up for others. So it affects everything.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. Yes, it might be coming in for one part of their life,
Mhm.
but then everything is, it's all within us. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking about the piece of just even the alignment that you were talking about, when we really know something's in alignment for us too.
Mhm.
And also thinking about the whole idea of our past lives affecting us. And so, a lot of people
Mhm.
coming into you for a session, it might be their first time even exploring this.
Yes.
And I think the way that when I didn't know this information, I used to think that every pattern that was showing up, belief system I had pretty much was me, and that there was this lifetime. I probably didn't even realize that it was affected by my childhood and things like that, but then began to
Mhm.
know that. But then when people are introduced to the Akashic records, then we begin to know like, oh, there's these past lifetimes we're drawing on. So is it that things that we are experiencing in this lifetime are not necessarily always informed by what's happened so far for us in this period of our life, this life?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. There might have been triggers in this life, but a lot of phobias or unexplained, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have a definitive reason for why you can't even say the word spider because the
Yes.
spider is so
Uh-huh.
terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Or public speaking, I think, is meant to be like is the most popular fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really it's not might not be speaking, it's actually being visible, being heard.
Mm-hmm.
And that can come from so many other experiences, our own as well as our ancestors, where standing up or being noticed or being picked could then lead to persecution, punishment, torture, or even death.
Yeah.
Um, and so, we just like, we bring in certain traits from our genetic
Mm-hmm.
ancestry. We can bring in traits from genetic and spiritual ancestors as well. And my sense is that if it's showing up in this lifetime, it's because it's an opportunity. You're ready in a way to
Yeah.
deal with it, handle it,
Mm-hmm.
or recreate it, have a
Mm-hmm.
different perspective on it. So I never look at them as a punishment or there's something wrong with me. It's actually there's something right with me because now I can handle it. There's something in me that knows I'm ready to move through or beyond this.
Yes. Yes.
So they're always kind of juicy opportunities, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yes, I think that opportunity, I could really see that if individuals had the revelations within a session that, wow, I'm carrying this and that came. I've had sessions with you where I was, really astounded by what I heard, and that we can be, even if we have healer type qualities in this lifetime. You've
Mm,
traced me back to say like, oh, you were the person in your village who really stood up for the other ones, or was the wisdom keeper. And I think that can be
yes.
really fascinating for people to learn, because when you talk about sort of that ping that you had when you first heard the Akashic records, I felt that when I've heard that information before, whatever it is that you think that really resonates with me,
Hmm.
and then you can see that, oh, it's been existing in me in I guess you would just say, in the Akashic records. It's the book of your lives. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. The book of life. Um, yes, that's another term that's often used for that. And there was something I was going to say then. I just lost my train of thought around it. But, oh, yes, you said that ping. I felt it when I heard the Akashic Records. You felt it when you've heard validation about some of your other lifetimes as a healer, as yeah, someone who speaks up for others. Um, Truth with a capital T we can feel it in our bodies often. Um, Not always, because based on what we're familiar with or what we've been taught. But truth to me is always expansive. It always leads to
Mm,
whereas a falsehood or lies or things that aren't aligned with us, it might not be untruth or mistruth for everyone, but it's just not true for us. That can cause a lot of pulling back and constriction or feeling really kind of uncomfortable.
hmm.
But truth, to me, it always kind of
Mm.
pulls me forwards almost.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a really
really.
important thing to
Yeah.
lean into and to start to realize. You're talking about things, information that is
Hmm.
really worthy for us to kind
Yes.
of learn. It's going to come in different forms. You are using the body gestures of an opening. So that
Yes.
feeling within our bodies of opening, that's sort of like that feels kind of it can feel kind of tactile in a way, but
Yeah.
then I know we've talked about before, auditory, the different kind
Yes.
of ways that people do get information.
Yes, and we get it in so many different ways. It could be, yeah, you hear it, and it's almost like not necessarily through your physical ears, but in your inner mind, or um, you might see it, and that doesn't mean yes, it does mean clairvoyance, but I've actually seen like a ticker tape of a message, and it was actually it was more clairaudience. It was like I was receiving a message in a different way, but um, people might receive it could be a certain scent. That is a scent that is maybe represents a loved one who's there to guide you and help you move forwards at times when you might need validation or extra dose of courage. Um, it could be colors. Like there's so many ways that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So not to be attached. Like some people come to me and they want to be more intuitive, and they say, "But I just don't see." It's like, that's okay. Like you may start to see, but what if that's not the way you've chosen to receive intuition this lifetime?
Yes. Yes.
For some, it may be just in certain moments you speak and the words just come, and out of your mouth comes these amazing words of wisdom, or the question that the person needed to hear, or whatever it is. It's just something that you didn't know it, you didn't think it just came through. So that it's that, yeah. So there's all kind, and I think I'm just going to reflect back to you. There are times when I feel like you're really tuning in and you act as a catalyst, because you ask these really deep, profound, pertinent questions that I don't think would come from necessarily, they could come from your conscious mind, but I feel like, oh, here we go. She's coming from her higher self.
Yes.
Coming from
Yeah.
the soul at this moment. And I
that's
love that.
yeah. Thank you for saying that. And I think that, I mean, I always, even for our listeners, like if you, that's the kind of thing that I heard from you. And it took me a while to believe, is what I want to say. And now I believe it to be true. And I think it reminds me of kind of when individuals start learning the work with you, is that to trust your own process. Because I was thinking when you were talking, oh, I've always been fascinated by the people who can see aura colors. And I think, gosh, I would love to be able to do that. And then I think, well, I mean, some people might say if you really worked on it, you could, but some people have the gift so naturally what it is for them. But I think it's really like, how does it come through for me? What are my gifts? And then really owning them, because when we own them, I'm finding that we can amplify them.
Yes, absolutely. And for me, this came to me years ago, the divine definition of power. Like I think our modern world, power is very associated with making things happen, or making things you want to happen. So maybe manipulating others, or managing, being very controlling or assertive or even aggressive. So it doesn't have a really warm and fuzzy kind of connotation, being powerful, right? But what came to me is the divine definition of power is knowing what your gifts are, using them, sharing them, and maybe at some point you'll even teach them.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's what the power is, because then it's like, that's why you came here, is to use them and play with them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what just came to me too. That's what we're here. And I am hearing those messages starting to be more resounding in our culture. And I know that when you're living a certain way, you look on certain, whatever it is, the books we pick up, the social media, if you're on that we look at, it tends to be that kind of vibration. But this message is starting to increase in its vibration, or being amplified in a new way. So that's what I want everyone to hear, is that this is for you, the listener today, to listen into, what are my gifts? Wait a minute. What are the gifts encoded in me? What am I here to share? I mean, what do you kind of think about the questions our listeners can ask themselves, or just to begin that exploration?
Yes. Okay, this is great. And I think there's lots that's been written on this as well, but
Hmm.
The things that are coming to me right now is your gifts are things that often come to you so easily, so naturally. They're almost like of course, that like for me, like knowing that question inside the sealed envelope, it was like
Hmm.
no brainer because I wasn't coming from my brain, right? I wasn't using my brain. So what are the things that come to you so easily that that people, may have recognized or thanked or appreciated you for, or people always come to you and ask you to do this thing or these things that you do? What are they, and how could you use those? Or what if you were to really look at them and appreciate them as gifts, not this is so easy, anybody could do it,
Hmm.
but this is so easy because it's a gift. And then ask yourself, so how can I maximize this? How can I make the most of this? How can I share it? How can
Hmm.
I bring more ease and grace into my life by really using this gift? So that, I think, and then it's often as well the things that you love doing so much that they don't actually drain you. They don't cost you a lot of energy, and you could maybe do them all day. You do them for free just because you
Hmm.
love it so much. Those tend to be gifts too.
Wow. Yeah,
And it
that's
may not
incredible.
be what your listeners are doing for a day job right now. It may
Okay.
be something completely different. So
Yes.
just being willing to go, okay.
Hmm.
And it's not to say you don't have talents or abilities in things that you're being paid for right now, right?
Yes.
But it may be things that, just take you into a whole different realm, ways that you've never ever thought about, being able to live your life and be paid or supported by using these gifts, and just having so much more joy in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. I love that. It gives a lot to think about. And the thing that I didn't realize too, I'll say for the things that I'm finding are my gifts, is I didn't think that they mm, were real, or they were real skills, or they were valued, because you couldn't really measure them, and you couldn't
Mm,
they weren't really represented in traditional jobs. And I do think that with the interest people are beginning to have more and more of looking within
mm,
and discovering, like you're saying, the gifts, or why are these things happening in my world, and trying to go into a deeper understanding. There, we're seeing more people step into providing that I feel like it's healing work
yes.
in different professions. Often it can be across coaching or healing, or
Mhm.
just these kind of professions. But I just didn't used to think that that was real or valid. And I knew, because I always valued emotional intelligence. I remember getting Daniel Goleman's book when I lived in New York
Mhm.
City, Emotional Intelligence. And I I can't even say I read the whole thing, but I knew. I just
You
thought,
just
like,
knew.
this guy's got something.
Yeah.
And I said it all these years that I valued it, but for me to truly believe was a
Mm,
different practice. And now I embody it because I do believe it. I've seen it play out in
mhm.
front of my eyes. And I think, especially, I'm going to say, with the children coming up,
Yes.
is we're
Yes.
seeing
Mhm.
this call for a different way of relating in the world and
Yes.
being in the world. And I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here. And
Yes.
you're nodding, so you feel this
Oh
way.
gosh, because yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, the world that you and I were born into, I know I'm older than you, but kind of roughly the same kind of decade or
Mhm.
whatever, that, we came in at a time where what we're talking about right now in your inner world was not something, it was in certain communities, but it wasn't widely accepted. And there's been such a huge shift in our consciousness that this is more now recognized or accepted.
Mhm.
And I do believe the vibration of consciousness as a whole has risen. And that's why the children who are coming in, um, I believe not all, but many of the children coming in are coming in with completely, like all children come in and they're just pure awareness, right? They're just, they're open. But there are specific souls coming in now who are no karma. They're not bringing in anything necessarily to
Mm.
heal for
Mhm.
themselves. They might be
Mhm.
coming in to help be a catalyst for to heal with others or humanity as a whole. And they're coming in with such a purity.
Wow.
And that wouldn't have been possible without all the heavy lifting
Mm-hmm.
and dissolving and just creating that we've been doing on this planet. And it's still going on, and it's been really intense. And the last 2 or 3 years have been extra intense. So for you, Maureen, and me, and I imagine anyone listening to this podcast, we're all perhaps more sensitive than the average
Okay.
person might
Mm-hmm.
be. And that just means that we're taking in more input or information or energy.
Okay.
And it might not even be ours. So even if we've navigated the last 2 or 3 years with all the craziness that's been going on in the world, feeling pretty clear and not really being too perturbed by what's going on, we're still affected by the energies that we pick up from our family, friends, our neighborhood, our community. So it's been a time, I think it's very important for us as light workers, as healers or sensitive beings, to really, really put our own self-care front and foremost.
Okay.
Because I feel that there's a sense of, it's been very draining, even if we weren't consciously aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we need a few weeks, maybe a few months, maybe more, just to really kind of, oh, okay, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm good. Everything's good. And nurture our own energy system so that we can be fully present and sharing our gifts in the brightest way.
Yeah.
Coming year and beyond.
I love that. Yes. And so I know that recently, or in the last year plus, year to 2 years, you've created a process. I don't know if process is the right word, but I'm talking about
Yes.
reroute. Will you
Yeah.
tell our audience about reroute?
Oh, yes. It's one of my favorite tools. Thank you for bringing this up, because
Mm-hmm.
I hope that I'll be able to introduce it and people can use it if they want or try it. So I think it was in 2020. And I was drawn to the Hawaiian healing prayer technique of Ho'oponopono. And I took the certification training in it, and I loved it. I thought it was wonderful. I did see differences. And at the same time, I kept getting a sense. It's just like everything in our world is shifting. There's something about it that was like, there's another way, a higher vibration that wants to come in. So it's not that Ho'oponopono is no longer relevant. It was just, there's something new. And I could feel it. I knew it was something very similar. Ho'oponopono, if somebody doesn't know what that is, you can say it in any order, but I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I thank you. And you kind of say that again, whatever comes up into your awareness, you can do that on. And so I opened up my records and I asked, and I got, yes, there's a kind of a 5D version.
Wow.
Okay, what is it? What is it? And it's like, and it wouldn't come through. I couldn't get what it was. And I did this for about 4 or 5 months. And I got a bit frustrated. And then I was like, you know what? I'm trying to make something happen, and it's not mine to make. This is going to come through when it's time. So I was walking in the dog park, just walking around. It was a cold January day, and suddenly, boom, the 4 phrases were there. And I went home, immediately did a video, sent it out to my community. And then the next month I started a 21-day experience with it. And then it became a monthly group, and it's now evolving again, but it's been amazing. It's such a simple thing to do. And it's almost like, if you imagine when we have a challenge, a problem, an upset, a pain, if you can look at it as energy, a bit like water that's got stuck in a certain state, and energy is designed to flow. So the analogy I got was, it's like an iceberg. You know, it's water, but it's got contracted into a certain state of ice. So the reroute acts like the sun, just beaming down on this iceberg, and it just transmutes it, transforms it back into flowing energy. And so what I found is persistent worries, it works really well. Persistent worries or negative thought patterns, anything, a problem, financial health, relationship, any kind of concern. And the four phrases are very simple. They are: I come from love, I am love, I am already loved,
Mm,
I am grateful for the I am that I am. And the
beautiful.
first I am is capitalized, like I am meaning creator, source, all that is. So I'm grateful for the source energy that I am.
Beautiful.
And you can repeat that, and there's all kinds of ways to play with it.
Okay. I
Yeah.
love it. It's so soothing. And then when people are tapping into whether it's a persistent thought or worry, like you
Mhm.
said, is it is that sometimes can they feel it in the body too? Or find that, or is it just in the practice of the four phrases? Is it just
Oh,
like a
yes.
kind of, how do they practice?
Yes. So we practice by, first of all, this might go against what a lot of, like what you or other people have heard. Rather than resisting this negative thought, worry, the pain, you actually give yourself permission to really feel it,
I
be
love that.
present to it.
Hmm.
And it, because I believe that it's there for a reason. It's there to bring something up or
Yes.
teach us something. And until we're willing to look at it or feel it, it's going to keep coming up.
Yes.
So having that
Hmm.
courage and saying, you know what, I'm being supported. I
Hmm.
can do this.
Hmm.
So what I do, and on my website, there is a still available a training that goes into way more detail on
Okay.
this, like 30 minutes. But
Yeah.
is like, whatever it is like, give yourself permission to say, I don't want to feel
Hmm.
whatever it is. I don't want to have this constant worry. I don't like having this pain, whether it's emotional, mental, physical.
Yeah.
Um, and really go there into like, this is the energy that's stuck. And then when we do the reroute and we say those four phrases again and again, and at first it may
Hmm.
feel really weird, unnatural, like I don't get it, but just reminding ourselves that we actually come from love.
Yeah.
That's our true nature,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Love, light, energy. We can, by the way, if love is a trigger word, you can change it to I come from energy. I am
Okay.
energy.
Okay.
I am
Hmm.
already energized. So you can play with it. Um, but that love, that truth of who we are, allows us to dissolve the illusion that we're not. And so the problem, so what can
Mm.
happen is we can feel more peaceful, we feel lighter, spacious. Sometimes what I've had is I'll get inspired, a solution will come to me while I'm doing the reroute.
Hmm.
Um, all kinds of wonderful things can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I
By
love
being
that.
present.
I've got the four phrases. I just wrote it on an index card on my bulletin board, just so
Mm-hmm.
it's there as that reminder. But it makes perfect sense, the things you're talking about they show up for us for a reason. It makes sense that they often feel like they haven't been cleared yet, because if it's something that we keep on going back to and back to and back to, I can feel that the energy would get really stuck. It would get almost layer upon layer upon layer.
Yeah.
So the love, or the energy, if they want to use that word,
Yes.
begins. I like how you said it transmutes it into the
Mm-hmm.
stuck, into the flowing. And
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
feel like that's so important, because that's also, that's our spiritual sort of health, that's our mental health, and it's our body health too, to be
Mm-hmm.
able to move and transmute what no longer
Yes.
serves us. Hmm.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a really important what you just said there, though. It's our body health too, because I think so many of us, especially if we're sensitive, we come into this world and the world can seem very harsh or painful, or, the way we've been brought
Yeah.
up. It's like, expect
Hmm.
problems, got to work hard for the money. Like, it's just like, anything that comes easy isn't really yours. So we're kind of taught to look for the hardness, right? And so we think that being on the planet somehow is a punishment,
Mm.
or this is something we have to get through so we can actually finally go back home. But I really want to encourage all of us, really, to look at our bodies are actually an answer to a prayer or request that we made at the soul level. And they're an extension, an expression of our own soul.
Oh,
And that
beautiful.
they're a vehicle for us to have these magical, amazing experiences that are hard to come by outside of the planet Earth. So it's like, yeah. So when we get into the body, when we're grounded, we're still spiritual beings. It's not either or. I think some of us may have had a tendency to get into like a meditation hotspot, like that's our go-to, a refuge. But then we're not living our life, we're not being present. So I think what's coming through for us going forwards, like the next step in our evolution is, yeah, being in the nitty gritty of life, cooking, doing errands, running the kids back into school, and being in a walking, breathing, vessel of light. So bringing more of the love into whatever we're doing, more of the compassion, more of the kindness, more of the appreciation.
Yes.
Even in the stressful situations, especially in the stressful situations.
Yeah.
And it is a challenge. It's an invitation, I should say, not challenge. It's an invitation for us to grow.
Yeah. And then with that kind of ritual or practice of something like reroot, it changes our cellular makeup. And then we do begin to embody it. And so when those day-to-day things get overwhelming, or they feel too much, or we feel kind of exhausted, I feel like that is sort of balm for the places that feel harder, but it's easier to access once we've been practicing.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's almost like, yeah, absolutely. You said it perfectly. I don't have anything to add. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, Alicia, I know that, you are also not only a master of everything you've talked about today, but I know the way that you share your work can be done individually, but can you tell our audience where to find you or what kind of work you do?
Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes. So yoursoulstory.com is my website. That's SOUL. I always think SOLE would be great if I was a shoe designer or a cobbler, but I'm not. So yeah, yoursoulstory.com. And things are always evolving in my business as well. And I'm being called to do more live groups in the coming year. I'm very eager to see how that all unfolds. But yeah, I do have private coaching, and you can connect through the website there, or go to connect@yoursoulstory.com is my main email address.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, and there'll be more trainings and workshops and just one-off events coming up.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll vouch for, I've been in a mastermind of yours. I feel like I've done different classes over the years, including Akashic Records and learning about my relationship with my money story. So yeah, listeners, check out her website. It sounds like everything's on there, including more information about Reroot. But I thank you so much for being here today, Alicia. It's been so fun, and I've grown, and I've just learned so much. So I just big gratitude for you.
Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful delight, and I can feel all your listeners, like I can feel like this community that you are a master at gathering. And so I just want to send a big hug to you and to all those who are listening. You're so appreciated, and you're so needed, and really take good care of yourselves as we move into the coming years, because we're important.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you. And to my listeners, I will see you next time. It's been great having you, and see you in the next podcast. Thanks for listening to this episode of Mystical Sisterhood. To learn more about my one-on-one coaching programs or join the Mystical Sisterhood membership, visit maureenspielman.com or mysticalsisterhood.com. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next episode.